Right, here we go.
Yeah.
Working Wellbeing's podcast live at the Health and Wellbeing at Work Conference 2025. We have got Charissa from HR Magazine, the
Hello.
editor of HR Magazine.
Indeed.
Yeah, so do you want to introduce yourself? I've just introduced you. But...
Yeah, I think you've done it quite well, really. My name's Charissa King. I'm editor of HR Magazine.
Yeah, that's what I said. So what brings you to the event? So you've got quite a connection to this event, right?
Absolutely. So HR Magazine is published by the Mark Allen Group, and the Mark Allen Group are behind this amazing show, the Health and Wellbeing at Work Conference and Exhibition. So as part of our partnership and in arrangement with our publisher, we actually are hosting a conference stream called Best Place to Work. And so we have organised for a lot of our HR most influential and HR Excellence Award winners to be part of the stream and part of the conference today and yesterday. So we've a lot of our contacts and amazing like best case scenarios about HR have been here and talking about, their award-winning strategies for diversity, equity and inclusion.
Are you not allowed to say DEI?
Of course you are, but
Give it
fully
its full title.
inclusive.
Why not?
Fully inclusive. Yeah. You should really explain it, all the words. Right. So even equity, equality. I'm never sure where you are with DEI. There's so many different acronyms, but yeah, we've had a whole range of content so far, and we've got even more coming up today. Believe it or not.
Yeah, you must have some amazing speakers this afternoon, like. Me?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
God, you weren't going to bite on that at all. You were like, have we? Have we?
I know it's too early. I need to reread what we've got. Yeah, we've got the incredible David Liddell coming up as well. We've got Megan Rees. Genuinely, we've got an amazing lineup of speakers. It's going to be super exciting.
Yeah. Well, just on that, I was absolutely blown away to be voted onto that HR most influential list. I'll be honest with you. I'm not exactly sure how I made it, but I'll take it.
Do take it. You deserve it. I mean, it's not me that put you on there. As I said to you yesterday, don't hate me. It's your peers. So it's people who are part of the profession and they understand the profession and they have nominated you to be on the list. What can I say?
Lovely. Although it's hilarious. So I remember I went to the event in London and, this was, so I was actually on it first time in I got mixed my years up. 22 and then again in 23.
Yeah.
No, or 23 and then again in 24, perhaps.
Yeah, you should.
But the first year I went, I'd never been to this event before. And it was all new for me. And the list, there's about 30 on the list, isn't there?
Yeah, 30 practitioners. 30
so obviously
thinkers.
I was like, this is amazing just to be on the list. And then they started inviting people up to the stage, one by one, like this person's in third place, this person's in second place, first place. And my brain immediately went, oh shit, what if I've won? and then I was like, wait a second, you've not won. And then, I was 23rd.
You still won. At least, it's everyone's a winner on the list, really. Everyone's a winner.
But isn't it hilarious that like this little voice in my head went, you've not got a speech. What are you going to say? And I was like, surely.
Hang on.
Surely the people in the top three have got some idea that they're in the top three, maybe.
Who knows? I wouldn't want to reveal the mysteries.
Fair enough.
But no, well done in your achievement, genuinely.
Yeah. I'll have to get to the top three to find out.
Exactly. Got to bring some books out, even more podcast episodes. It all helps. It all counts.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm writing a book.
Yeah, you can.
Soon.
You work hard. You've got this.
Maybe.
I promise you've got this.
Yeah. So what I'm really interested in is in your position, you obviously get to speak to so many different people, all sorts of different organizations. So I want a vibe check on the industry as a whole, on the event perhaps, and whether you felt any kind of themes coming out of the event. And if you want to go broader than that in terms of society, we can start wherever you like.
Oh wow!
What's going on in the world of HR, but also wellbeing?
Well, you tell me. I mean, you're the practitioner here. You have been in this space for a long time. What do you think the hot topics are? What's going on?
What do I think the hot topics are?
You remember, I'm paid to ask questions, right? So I'm the interviewer.
Yeah, you've turned this around. Yeah, same old stuff, probably. No. No. So I'm really interested. There's loads I'm interested.
I know, right?
I love the merging of the worlds between well-being and health and safety. I think that's something that's really interesting. That we've got IOSH at this event today. That's really interesting.
Very much so.
HSC, that the whole health and safety piece is. It was typically physical health and safety is now moving over to mental health. And I'm seeing lots of organizations, your big engineering firms, construction. We had a lady on from a construction charity this morning.
Lighthouse?
Lighthouse, yes. And talking about the importance in those sorts of industries where they take physical health and safety so seriously So what they're doing is they're bringing mental health in under the same kind of banner, using the same methodology, and it's landing with people because you're speaking their language.
Absolutely
right?
agree.
So I think personally, and maybe I'm a bit biased because I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to things like psychosocial risk and all this sort of thing, but I think that perhaps will be where the industry starts to move, which will be an interesting one for HR, because then
Totally.
where do HR fit in with that? Because I'm not saying we're going to take wellbeing away from HR by any stretch of the imagination.
But in some organisations, that crossover is quite it's quite narrow, isn't it? Like HR practitioners are being asked to do more and more and more, and HR consultants are brought in to be doing more and different types of things. Is what I'm hearing. So yeah, I think there is a lot of melding of worlds, isn't there? You know, even with ESG strategy or sustainability strategy, some HR leaders are asked to be, can you put that under your umbrella? Can you start doing all of these other things? And I think that's where HR practitioners themselves and professionals themselves have to start looking after their own well-being and reminding themselves, do you know what? We're putting in all of these incredible, incredible initiatives for everyone else. Or what about us? Because the stats are showing, and you will have seen that HR practitioners themselves are burning out at such a fast rate, and we need to ensure that there are the same diligence through which we ensure that our employees and our staff are looked after, that HR practitioners are doing the same.
Yeah, really interesting. So how do you think we do that in practice?
Oh,
who's going to look after them?
That's it.
They're looking after everybody else.
That's it. And HR comes under a lot of flack, doesn't it? It comes under a lot of fire. Blame HR, for absolutely everything.
Do you think that's? We'll come back to do you think that still exists? Because again, I spoke to somebody.
What still exists? The blame culture.
The blame culture, but also like the like almost like a PR problem with HR. I spoke to a HR advisor yesterday. She came on and talked about all the amazing work they're doing around wellbeing. But one of the barriers she said was that people don't want to talk to them because it's like, I don't want to speak to HR.
Completely.
I only speak to HR when I'm in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a feature, a cover story about this early last year about exactly that, HR's PR problem. How can HR work with internal comms people to better improve their reputation so that they can be more effective in their organisations? So check that out. That's written by Honey Wyatt, incredible cover story. We also had a podcast episode on the HR Most Influential podcast featuring David Blackburn. You might have heard of him, pretty amazing guy, and also has an incredible voice as well, just the best voice. But we spoke to him. I spoke to him about exactly that, HR's PR problem. We'd had a spate of articles in the Times, in the New Statesman, just slagging off HR basically, and talking about it not being evidence-based enough, or what evidence do we have, like, or is HR worth it? Should we take away that money? And what is HR for? We get that there was like about 4 or 5. You might have even seen the incredible Peter Cheese, the head honcho at the CIPD, who wrote a very long defense of the profession. Well, not very long, but a very robust, I'd say, defense of the profession, which was really well received by HR leaders. And we discussed that. I discussed that with David on our podcast. So I do think that perception does still exist, and there is still that, unfortunately, that PR problem that HR has. And listen to David about his insights and how to combat that. His opinion is it's always been there, and it's a matter of like HR practitioners arming themselves with all the stats to show the effectiveness of the work it's doing to be able to defend the profession.
Yeah. Why do you think they need? Where has this come from? Do you think it's because is it a relatively new, when you compare it to finance or operations? I don't know the history of HR. Is it a new profession? Did you have HR departments in the 1950s?
Yeah, you did. You just didn't have, it wasn't called the HR in the same way.
Yeah.
I think we've had such an evolution from, now we've got HR, we've got people professionals, or, the people team. And I think before that you had the people management team, the human resources team, the personnel team. So it's just different iterations of similar things. And I think you're always going to have that, that evolution, because the world of work is ever changing, right? So you're always going to have that movement, I'm guessing.
I just wonder why they have to defend themselves as a profession. Why don't the others?
I think it's everyone's responsibility to defend the people who are looking after your people, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious.
Frustrating.
It's hilarious because seemingly the only friends I've got are all accountants for some reason. They're going to hate me saying that. But hopefully they don't watch my podcast. Like, they're not necessarily accountants, but they all work in finance, right, with different companies and whatnot. And look, after a few drinks, they always give me a bit of a stick. You work in a soft and fluffy area, well-being, HR, all that sort of stuff. I mean, the joke is a couple more beers and they're then telling me all their problems and all this sort of thing and opening up. It says it's a therapy session.
Yeah, exactly.
So they know deep down that it matters. But it's interesting that, with HR, I guess it's one of those professions that, like I say, it's not necessarily you go there when you're in trouble, like I said before. But when you need it, you want it to be there. But when you don't necessarily need it day to day, you think you don't need it. Do you see
maybe,
what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Whereas with the finance department, you always need paying, so they think, oh, well, that's important because I always need paying.
But I think that's where the long-standing argument of HR having a seat on that C-suite table is so important, isn't it? The biggest cost to any organisation, as you well know, is people.
Yeah.
So if HR doesn't have that seat at that table in the C-suite, then you're missing out on the opportunity of influencing that biggest cost.
Yeah, got you. So back to the conversation back to the conversation about where well-being sits in all of this. So what do you think the answer is in terms of, should we have dedicated well-being positions? Should it be the remit of HR? Should it be occupational health and safety? What do you think? You can sit on the fence.
I was going to try and sit on the fence, but I think my personal view is that, and of course, is that well-being is everyone's responsibility at work. So we can't assume or leave it to one person or one team or one function to say, right, they're the well-being people. Actually, it's everyone's responsibility. We should all be calling out where we think that something's not right in our organisation. We need to be active bystanders. We need to be calling out, do you know what? I don't think this person is well. We need to be a little bit more okay with being a telltale tit if our colleague isn't doing okay. And we need to be able to ask that, is everything okay? I think maybe your lighthouse person might have said this to you. But one of their things is, ask twice, or I think it's maybe even asked 3 times, are you all right? Okay, yeah. Oh, but are you actually all right? Keep up that momentum and ask that. And I think it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that we're all right, because we spend so much of our time at work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking personally, I spend a lot of my time at work. So
it's not what your colleagues say.
Oh, thanks.
No,
But yeah, I think it is all our. But yeah, in terms of where it should sit officially, it depends on your type of organisation as well. I spent a lot of my career, 12 years of my career in the charity sector, publishing in that field. So yeah, in that organisation, it did sit with HR. Health and safety sat in the HR department, and that kind of makes sense. We were an organisation which had about 60 central staff. The organisation I'm in now, is it similar? We've got a lot more staff and a lot more brands, but yeah, I don't believe we have a dedicated health and safety person. We might have people with different health and safety responsibilities, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably a case where it works well either way, but I do think my personal view is, don't just leave it to one person. They've got it, it's fine, it's their responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. Is that
no, absolutely no?
Is that too sitting on the fence?
No, I agree. It does depend on the organisation, right? And you absolutely needs to be everyone's responsibility. I do think you need someone steering these things.
No, I'm sure.
But at the same time, you're right. You can't just, if you think about HR, not just well-being, you can't just outsource that. You can't have the CEO just saying, right, I'm going to outsource my people, my responsibilities to people to the HR department. Therefore, meaning I don't need to look after my people. It's like, no, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, we all need to look after our people, because that's our colleagues. And as much as we've got the people that we like and the people that we don't like, right? But we still have to, if we don't look after all of those people, where will the organisation be?
Yeah. So the important question: who don't you like? No. I'm only messing.
Don't worry, you're on the good list. You're on the good list.
So-
You'll receive a Christmas card from me this year.
So to make it all about me, this afternoon I'm talking. My talk this afternoon is about a standard for wellbeing leadership, and I'll tell you about this. So the quick version is worked for a little while now to try and understand, can we legitimize these roles around wellbeing, whether it is a part of HR role or occupational health, or whether it is a dedicated role. Doesn't really matter for me, but I want to legitimize and kind of create a standard for those roles. And I'll give you an example of it.
Please do.
A couple of weeks ago, there was I feel bad saying this because it feels like I'm having a go at Stephen Bartlett. It's not Stephen Bartlett's fault.
There are a few people that would agree with you on that, but yeah go on.
I'll explain myself, and I'll keep it quick. But he posted on LinkedIn that he's hiring for a head of health and happiness. I'm not sure whether you saw this.
No.
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So my initial reaction to that was amazing. Great. Like someone in a very high profile, influential position hiring for one of these roles. Perfect. I then read down, and he said, what is important is that you're hardworking, kind, and willing to learn. And what's not important is that you have any qualifications, any experience. And there was another one. And I thought, part of my head went to inclusivity, and I went, that's good that he's not shutting the door. You know, because I'm not one of these traditional people who's like, you must have a master's degree in this or that or the other to have that job. But then you think to yourself, if he was hiring for a finance director, would he say,
different talk.
You need no experience, no qualification? I'm not sure. So why do we feel we can do that with a health and happiness role, a well-being role, but we wouldn't do that with a serious role?
Yeah.
Right? But then I thought maybe I'm just overthinking the whole thing.
Not at all. No, not at all. That's really interesting. I didn't see that ad, but I agree with you. There is a different set of standards, isn't there, or expectations in one's mind about what a health and well-being person needs to look like. And we should be more rigorous about that. We should be more... we should be able to hold people to account, and that doesn't necessarily happen through qualifications, you know. But yeah, we should.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to hearing more about this.
No, and that's what, and also Rachel Lewis, we spoke to her yesterday. She's on your list.
Yeah, she is.
She's higher up than me.
Don't worry.
or lower down, whichever way you look at it. But she's working on something similar, you know, that's absolutely kind of complementary to the stuff that we're doing, which I was delighted to see that people are taking an interest in this area. That, like I say, I don't think it's, as you say, we need a whole set of qualifications that you need to spend, especially nowadays with university being so expensive, that you need to spend this money to be able to, you know, we don't want to put barriers up for people.
No, not at all. And we've seen so many cases where people succeed without having those types of qualifications.
Absolutely. But it's about things like building people's confidence and reducing imposter syndrome. You know, the amount of wellbeing leaders that I've met, they're amazing. They're amazing at their jobs, but they doubt themselves because they've got no benchmark to measure themselves against. Do you see what I mean? They've got no...
Is that why they doubt themselves, or are there other reasons?
Oh, what are the reasons? Why do you think they doubt themselves?
You know, like leadership, what are their managers telling them? What are their direct reports telling them? I mean, it's a matter of... I think imposter syndrome's a really interesting one, because like most successful leaders will have butts up against this problem in their career, right? It's such a high, either the most, you know, I was speaking to some Ursula and Maddie from the Inclusive Workplace yesterday, and they said that the most senior people they've ever met still suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's incredible how pervasive that is. You know, it could be from your background. You could have had situations in your family or in the family you grew up in or the environment you grew up in that have allowed you to doubt yourself, and you've got to then it would help your career and help you get over it if you could try and deal with some of those issues. So some of it is deep rooted, some of it comes from the workplace itself, and other times, like you say, it is also they're not able to measure themselves against what best looks like. So they haven't been able to see how well they're actually doing because they're working in a silo almost and haven't seen best practice, which is why the work that you do is so important.
Yeah, and you as well. But because you're in a similar position to myself in that we have the benefit of speaking to people in these positions.
Correct.
And you realize that they're just human beings. You know, we've had people on the podcast, they're like, you know, global head of this and that and the other, and you think, oh well, they'll have it locked down. And like on the podcast they're great, but then you stop rolling and they're like, was that okay? It's like, yeah, it was amazing. Like, how are you doubting yourself? But you do realize that it's it affects everybody, right?
Totally. And that, again, that's why the work that you're doing is so important, the working well. It's about ensuring that everyone has the tools and has access to enabling yourself to be a better professional and to be if you're a better professional, you're going to help your people and your organization's people.
Yeah. Well, we just want to connect people. So the background of it is, I am a consultant. I go into businesses and they pay me money to solve their well-being problems or to help them solve their well-being problems. And I was speaking to all these amazing well-being leaders and HR and all sorts of different professions. And I was like, you don't need to speak to me. You need to speak to each other. Like, you need to speak to each other. You need to hear what they're doing.
Don't talk yourself out of a job here.
Well, yeah, that's what is kind of what I'm doing.
No, I understand.
But
I get it.
Yeah. And so that was the dream behind it, was if we could just create this community. And I feel like HR Magazine is part of that ecosystem,
So.
Well, no, it is, because that's the information that they're consuming and contributing to as well, and it's part of that conversation that we need those individuals having with one another. They don't just necessarily need to listen to gurus like me. Am I a guru? I just call myself a guru. God,
let's
weird.
call you a guru. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, what about let's get wider with the last couple of minutes.
Oh dear.
How about the impact of the wider world on HR? So one of the things that I spotted yesterday in terms of some of the conversations that we're having and some of the vibe across some of the talks as well, is that I didn't necessarily see people talking much or acknowledging the impact that things like the cost of living crisis or the current state of the economy, the housing crisis, or the war in Ukraine and Israel and Palestine and all that sort of stuff, the impact that has on people in the workplace now. Do you think those conversations are just too difficult to have, or do you think we should be having them in?
I don't think they're too difficult to have. I think organizations are having those conversations. Okay. They may not be standing up at Health and Wellbeing at Work Conference 2025, but I think HR leaders and all leaders will be having those conversations with their staff. I think staff will be raising those issues, and staff HR practitioners will be aware of that. I know that from personal experience, having spoken to HR practitioners, that they are grappling with this. How do we support our teams? During it's Ramadan right now as we're speaking, as you and I are speaking, and Islamophobia is increasing all the time. Yet another report has come out to say that it's even higher than it has been. It's unprecedented levels. How do we support our Muslim colleagues, our practicing colleagues, our observing colleagues in this situation? So people are having that conversation. I don't think it's too difficult. I think maybe there's a difficulty in being public around those conversations, potentially. Depends on what type of organization you're in. But I don't think it's too difficult. I think, maybe it's a difficult line to walk, and maybe there's a difference between what one can say in public and what one is really working hard to do within their organization, potentially.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And there's no easy answer to that, right?
No.
I don't have the solution to it.
I don't either, thank God.
I don't have the solution to war. No, of course.
That'd be great.
But it does just strike me sometimes, when I have these moments of existential crisis, when I feel like I'm doing really good work in an organization and all the rest of it, and I'm like, yeah, but the economy's going to shit. So what's
people
the point?
Are worried about it. I mean, CIPD brings out lots of reports about, I think there was one a couple of days ago about how employers are probably going to make cutbacks because of the increased NI contributions. That you can't ignore these external factors of the economy. You have to work with it within it, I guess. And these things will always impact employees and staff, and HR has to have that within its remit. But how you then pivot to that depends on your organization, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ask the questions. I don't have the answers.
Fair enough.
Sorry, people.
So it's slightly related, I guess. Another meaty subject is oh God, I'm going off on one here. This is basically me just ranting.
Go ahead, rant away. I'm here for you.
Lack of empathy from certain people within organisations, particularly towards the younger generation coming into the workforce. So, you talk about a PR problem. I think that Gen Z's got a PR problem because they're lazy and they just want to be on YouTube all day and they don't want to connect with people and all these lazy stereotypes that you hear about it. I know a lot of young people and they incredibly hardworking and they just want to do a really great job. But the problem is to a certain extent, they're hamstrung. Because if we went back to the economy, houses are so flipping expensive that how can they see themselves getting on the housing ladder? So there's a risk that they become disenfranchised right from the off when joining an organization. Back to the lack of empathy.
Go on.
I feel like there may be senior leaders who've kind of been through that, who think, well, I just work really hard. They're not working hard enough. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm ready.
Well,
Tell me where you're going with it.
they're not working hard. I worked really hard. They just need to work harder. And they're not empathizing with that the world has changed.
Do you think that's an education problem then?
How do you mean?
We need to do better at educating those C-suite leaders or people that have these perceptions, these outdated perceptions, to remind them of what is going on. I mean, I had generational training recently, so I had my organization.
What does that look like?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was interesting. We had a management training that was talking about different generations and how to work with them, how to get the best out of them, broadly, obviously very broadly speaking, and what type, like how this generation likes to be managed generally very broadly, and I think that type of training is so insightful.
Yeah.
But taking it away from me and more about the subject in hand, maybe education is needed for managers. We always talk about these managers not getting enough support, and there being a lot of untrained managers in the workforce, right? I'm not one of them, but I think maybe there's some work to be done there about making sure that actually people realize the influences and the context, that's what I mean, in which the generations are working and all have grown up in, because that's what you were saying about the unaffordability of housing, etc. right now. Maybe we need to ensure that message is really getting through to organizations, potentially.
Yeah, no. Education's always the answer, right?
I don't know, maybe.
Conversation.
Conversation.
Let's just talk more.
I totally agree with that. There was a quote from, I can see isn't Mick Lynch.
Okay.
He said exactly that. The best way to get educated is to have through conversations. He said it much more eloquently than I'm saying it to you now. But I love that quote, and it's one of my top quotes of all time.
Ace. Amazing. So I think I've got like 1 minute left. So what does the future hold for HR in 60 seconds?
Oh, thanks for that one.
We're sat here in a year's time or 2 years' time. What's changed?
The profession will still be there. I think everyone will still need.
That's good. We're not disappearing.
It's not disappearing. It's not going away anytime soon. Yeah. We'll still be there. We'll still be fighting for the best practice and the best support for colleagues, both inside and outside of organizations. That's what I can say. But as to how that's going to happen, that's what I ask the questions for.
Okay. Through some of the amazing people working in those areas.
Like yourself.
That was not a problem for that.
I'm letting you know that we appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll take it.
Take it. Just take it.
I'll take it. Ace. So what have we got planned for the rest of the day today?
It's just, work, as always. No, we've got that Best Place to Work conference stream. We'll be showcasing incredible case studies and thought leadership pieces throughout the day. So look out for that.
And where can people find you? You mentioned you've got your own podcast.
We do. The HR Most Influential podcast, where we interview HR Most Influential listees. And we've also got our website, hrmagazine.co.uk, where you can read our magazine, but also our daily content that we produce.
Yeah. And you still produce a print version of that?
We do.
Yeah.
The print version is very much there.
Yeah. Amazing. Ace, well, it was lovely speaking to you.
Likewise, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, for the listeners, when I spoke to you about doing the podcast yesterday, you said you'd have nothing interesting to talk about, which was a lie. Definitely a lie, because that was great. That was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.